Hi, I'm Toro, and welcome to Toro's History Lullabies. All my life, I've needed a little background noise to fall asleep. For years, it was just the hum of a fan or some soft static. But ever since wireless earbuds came into my life, I've found myself drifting off to podcasts and documentaries, learning and relaxing at the same time. That's why I started making these videos. Calming stories from history, told gently, to help you unwind, learn something new, and hopefully fall asleep a little easier. So get comfortable, close your eyes if you'd like, and let's step quietly into the past. And if you enjoy these stories, I'd love it if you gave the video a like and subscribed for more. Sweet dreams.
The World in 1906. Hello, dear dreamer. It's Toro here. Welcome back to another peaceful journey through time. Tonight, I invite you to close your eyes, breathe deeply, and allow yourself to float backward, gently, calmly, to the year 1906. Imagine the world in softer colors, sepia tones, the rustle of long coats and heavy skirts, the quiet tick of pocket watches and the creak of horse-drawn carriages. A world where lights still flickered from oil lamps, and news came in folded papers carried by hand. A world caught in the slow turning of change, where invention met tradition in hushed conversations and silent wonder. This was a year of stirring beginnings and solemn endings, of whispered progress and the enduring stillness of simpler living. So let us begin this gentle passage together. Let the world of 1906 unfold softly, like the turning of a delicate page. World events as the calendar turned to 1906. The world was balanced between empires and awakenings. Quiet transformations rippled across continents, rarely in thunder, more often in the hush of resolve. On the 18th of April, in the early hush before dawn, San Francisco shuddered beneath the weight of the Earth's deep breath. An earthquake, vast and powerful, struck just after 5 a.m. Buildings groaned and fell into dust, and within moments, fires swept through the streets, turning wood and brick into glowing ruin. But even amidst this devastation, there was an astonishing calmness in the human spirit. Neighbors helped strangers, water was drawn from wells by hand, and meals were shared over rubble. Tent cities rose in golden parks, and slowly, gently, the city began to reimagine itself. Far away, across oceans and icy fjords, Finland offered a quiet revolution. In this wintry northern land, a monumental law was passed. For the first time in history, women were granted not only the right to vote, but also to be elected into parliament. In quiet kitchens and snow-blanketed streets, Finnish women whispered this news to one another, knowing it would echo for generations to come. In London, inside the stone halls of Parliament, a small but mighty shift occurred. A Pension Act was introduced, a promise of care for the elderly poor. Imagine the comfort it brought, as word spread to aging workers who had given their lives to labor. Now, they might find ease in the twilight of their years. In Persia, the wind of change curled around ancient minarets. The constitutional revolution had begun. Ordinary people, merchants, scholars, farmers, gathered in Tehran, not with weapons, but with petitions, poems, and prayers. They asked not for war, but for voice, for representation, for a parliament. And on the steep slopes of Italy's southern coast, Mount Vesuvius, ancient and brooding, awoke with a soft, smoky growl. Ash fell like snowfall across villages, and at night, red-orange embers could be seen dancing at its mouth. No great destruction came. Only a whispered reminder that even the oldest parts of the earth are never truly still. Daily life around the world let us wander now, softly, through the lives of everyday people. Let us step into their morning routines, their kitchens and doorways, their hopes and their silences. In Paris, dawn brought with it the aroma of fresh bread, boulanger's kneaded dough by hand, flour rising into the air like soft dust in sunlight. The streets echoed with the clack of heels on cobblestones, and the rustle of newspapers tucked under arms. Chimneys puffed white smoke into the sky, and shutters creaked open to greet the gray light of morning. In St. Petersburg, Russia, carriages rolled slowly along icy roads. Women wore velvet-trimmed coats and fur hats snug against the cold. Tea samovars hissed in every home, filling rooms with warmth and a faint scent of jasmine. Even the smallest homes held books, poetry, philosophy, stories passed down in gentle voices. In Shanghai, the Bund was lined with traders and vendors. The Huangpu River moved steadily past grand European facades and lantern-lit teahouses. Rickshaws clattered down narrow lanes, and families gathered to eat bowls of congee and fried dough sticks, as the scent of ginger, smoke, and soy drifted through the dawn. In the countryside of Brazil, coffee plantations unfurled across green hills. Pickers began their day early, under a sun already warm. Mules carried sacks of beans, and children played barefoot in the shade of jacaranda trees, their laughter soft as bird calls. Across the American West, settlers still lit lamps at twilight, and porches held rocking chairs that creaked gently under the stars. Trains whistled through small towns, the steel tracks humming beneath them like the string of a great harp. At night, families listened to the wind and read aloud by flickering light. And everywhere, people wrote letters by hand, carefully, deliberately, sometimes over many days. They cooked over fires, they watched the sky for rain, and they measured time by the angle of the sun and the scent of supper on the stove. Science, inventions, and technology. The year 1906 held its own quiet wonders. Science was still a whispered language, shared in journals, tested in lantern-lit labs, and often born from the curious minds of lone inventors. In England, a gleaming silver automobile rolled out of a modest workshop. It was the Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost, a car so quiet, they said it purred like a spirit. Crafted with loving precision, it promised luxury, not in speed, but in smoothness, in grace. In New York, a radio signal pulsed through the sky. A simple tone, then a human voice. It was faint, like a whisper through fog, but it proved something magical. Words could fly. And someday, the world would listen together. In medicine, quiet revolutions saved lives. The ideas of antiseptics and hand-washing had taken root. Doctors stitched wounds with sterilized thread, and patients recovered more often than not. Diseases that once brought fear were being studied with kindness and care. Meanwhile, in homes of privilege and curiosity, a new toy appeared, the Victrola, a hand-crank machine that could sing. Its voice was scratchy, yes, but to those who had never heard music from a machine, it felt like a kind of spell. In photography, the first glimmers of true color emerged. No longer just black and white, but faint pinks of a cheek, the blue of a sailor's coat, the gold of a child's curls. They weren't perfect yet, but they were breathtaking. Science was not booming in 1906. It was blooming, quietly, patiently, petal by petal. Culture and the arts let your mind drift now into music halls and candlelit salons, to canvases still wet with paint, to stories whispered from mouth to mouth. In Vienna, Gustav Klimt worked late into the night, his studio warm with oil and gold leaf. He painted women who looked like myths, wrapped in mosaics of color and curling line. To look at his work was like falling into a dream. In Russia, the ballets Russes trained under low ceilings, their dancers moving with impossible elegance. They danced not for applause, but for the sheer joy of motion, of beauty. Their time to dazzle the world would come. But for now, they rehearsed in silence. In America, Scott Joplin's piano keys rang out with a quiet kind of joy. Ragtime waltzed from parlor to parlor, notes dancing like butterflies above the ivory. It was new, it was spirited, but also comforting. It made people sway in their chairs. Writers spoke in paper and ink. Mark Twain, old now, was still sharp as ever. His humor had softened, but not faded. He was writing, always writing. And in quiet London rooms, Yem Forster dreamed of Italy and wrote Where Angels Fear to Tread. A story about longing and misunderstanding, told with gentle honesty. Children recited poetry from memory. Women embroidered listening to folk tales. Evenings were often silent, but full of music, stories, painting, prayer. The arts were not entertainment, they were breath. Media and headlines in 1906. The world's news arrived not in breaking bulletins or glowing screens, but folded neatly and still warm from the press. Newspapers rustled in breakfast nooks and on park benches. The London Times, the New York Herald, Le Figaro in Paris, and the Japan Times, each printed with care, their headlines assembled by hand in metal type. A man with ink-stained fingers might have set the front page that told the world of the San Francisco disaster, or of a new railway being completed in Africa, or of a storm blowing across the Caribbean. Telegrams tapped across the oceans in Morse code. A whisper of a message, a pause, and another dot. Each sentence a miracle of patience. Magazines also had their moment. The Strand carried stories of Sherlock Holmes. Harper's Weekly in the U.S. painted images with words. Illustrations, not photographs, brought news to life. And political cartoons made people chuckle softly over morning tea. And what did things cost? A loaf of bread, perhaps 5 cents. A good pair of leather shoes, around $1. The average worker might bring home $500 in a year, carefully saved in tin boxes and under mattresses. People consumed news differently, slower, more thoughtfully. They read aloud to each other. They clipped favorite pieces and tucked them in journals. It was a world where the written word lingered long after the page was turned. People born/died this year. The year 1906 was a cradle and a farewell. It welcomed gentle new voices into the world and softly carried others away. Among those born was Dmitri Shostakovich in snowy St. Petersburg. He would grow up amid revolution and sound, and his music, layered, longing, powerful, would one day echo across great halls in defiance and beauty. In Ireland, a quiet baby named Samuel Beckett was born. One day, his words would stretch time and silence, writing plays where pauses spoke louder than speech, and where stillness revealed the shape of the soul. Satchel Paige, born in Alabama, would become a legend of baseball, his pitches slow and fast, but always calm, always composed. He would defy the rules of the time and bring poetry to the diamond. Others, too, began their first year in 1906. Nobel Prize-winning economist William Vickrey, African-American opera singer Todd Duncan, and more, some famous, many not, each starting life under the same moon as you. And we said goodbye to others. Susan B. Anthony, the tireless voice of women's rights in America, passed peacefully in March. She had given speeches in thousands of towns, argued in courtrooms, and walked miles upon miles. And though she would not see women gain the right to vote in her lifetime, her name would be carved in the foundation of that future. Others departed too. Artists, teachers, parents, ordinary souls who left behind whispered legacies in letters, in stories, in remembered kindnesses. And so, slowly, gently, the year 1906 reached its final weeks. Across the world, fires burned low in hearths, and snow gathered quietly on rooftops. Children pressed their hands to frosted windows, waiting for morning, while elders sat with folded hands, reflecting in silence. In San Francisco, the city still bore its scars, but scaffolding rose like new saplings. Brick by brick, hope returned. The scent of pine and paint drifted down alleyways once filled with smoke. There were losses, but also beginnings. In parliament chambers, in temples, in town squares, people asked, how should we care for one another? What future do we shape, not with cannons, but with courage and conversation? There was no great finale to the year, no fireworks or revolution, just the slow rhythm of time and the soft ticking of a world changing in small, enduring ways. The stars over Persia, over Brazil, over a tiny post office in Finland, all shimmered the same, ancient, steady, watching. And as December turned to January, the earth welcomed 1907, with breath held, with hope folded gently under pillows and winter coats. Thank you for traveling through time with me tonight. I'm Toro, and it warms my heart to share these gentle stories, to help you drift into peaceful sleep, wrapped in the hush of history. If this quiet journey brought you rest, feel free to softly press the like button or subscribe, so you'll be with me again for our next soft stroll through the past. Soon, we'll visit the world in 1907. But for now, rest well. Let your thoughts drift like leaves in still water. May your sleep be long, your dreams full of stars and slow music. Good night, dear listener, and sweet dreams. Crescent Moon.